Yeah.
Okay, so
no, it's all of those things. Yes, it is.
And so to let all of our listeners know, your baby's name is your daughter.
The baby's name is Tegan Mira Wetton.
Oh. Well, welcome Tegan into the world.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm thrilled for you, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. I waited until I was 30. I waited until I was married and sort of had a good job and my life together. So nice to have a kid and not have my reaction be, holy shit, what the fuck are we going to do? It's nice for it to be a good thing. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's very nice for at least one person out of our circle of friends to have become an adult. So, and I congratulate you on that.
I don't know about that. I've masturbated 4 times today, so I don't know.
Well, that's the sign that you're married.
I don't think that's a sign of either way.
All right. Okay. So in general, guys, Jerry, you and I talked about this last time, but Chris, your opinion? Do you think that 2010 was all around a good year for films?
Yes. I do. I would say it was a much better year than 2009 or 2008. I was easily able to come up with very quickly when I was putting together this list, 20 movies, which I thought were very good and deserved to be on a list, and then, narrowed it down a little bit further. There's probably about 5 or 6 movies that I would consider great made this year. And then, easily 20, maybe even 25 movies, which were definitely recommendable. So that's good, numbers.
That is.
You got 24 or so, 24, 25 really good movies. That's a good movie, 2 good movies a month. So a good movie every 2 weeks or something like that.
Right.
So that's a pretty good average. It's kind of hard to complain with. I really did think it was a strong year, stronger than the last few.
Yeah. I do too. I was very pleased with this year in general, even though the films that I was most looking forward to turned out to not be necessarily my favorites.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is good. I mean,
that's always good.
There are lots of surprises in here for me. So, and hopefully there'll be some surprises out there for our listeners. You guys can argue back and forth about our choices if you'd like, because we're about to get started on it right now. Okay. Chris, let's start out with you. Number 10 on your list.
All right. Number 10 on my list was Alice in Wonderland. Just kidding. It was not Alice in Wonderland.
That'll be the parallel universe one.
Yeah.
That child really has changed your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That would absolutely not be on my list. No, number 10 for me would be The King's Speech, which I actually got a chance to see last night, which is just a really, solid sort of historical drama with a lot of comedy in it and a couple of really great performances. Maybe some of the best chemistry on screen this year between Jeffrey Rush and Colin Firth. And Colin Firth is fantastic in the movie.
Yeah.
So if he does win the Academy Award for Best Actor, if he sort of edges out Jeff Bridges, which he might since he won last year, then I would be okay with that because I thought he gave a really great performance, and he deserves it. He's someone who's been very dependable over the years, and it's not the great movie that a lot of people are pretending like it is. I mean, it's not something, it's not the best picture of the year, but it's a very, very solid sort of historical drama that anybody can watch. I mean, the crowd applauded when I saw it. So,
really?
They did. They do applaud.
It's worthy of inclusion on this list, in my opinion. It was a very, very good movie.
Okay. Do you think it's best picture material?
I do think that it's the potential sort of sleeper for the Best Picture category because some of the other movies like Black Swan and Social Network or Inception, although I think they are better movies, they don't have that classic sort of Best Picture quality to them. So if something was going to win in an English Patient type style, and sort of edge out the better movies, then it might be The King's Speech.
It may very well be, yeah.
Okay. Especially with Weinstein behind it, right?
Yeah, he's back.
Yes, exactly.
He's enjoying this like nobody's business.
I'm very impressed by Colin Firth. I mean, did you see him accept his award, his star on the Walk of Fame the other day? And he started talking about his wife and started crying, and then they started making comments that the British aren't known for their emotions, and he said, "Oh, it was just the wind in my eye, blue sand in my eye," or something. He's a very endearing guy, and a great actor. So he's getting his due. He's been around a long time, and
all of that comes through in the performance too. He's a lot of good dramatic work. He's very funny. He's very charming in the role. And you sort of feel very comfortable with him on screen from the beginning of the movie. So I think he probably should win. Although I like Jeff Bridges very much, I do think that Colin Firth's probably going to win. It's probably the best performance of the year.
Okay, Jerry. Number 10.
Number 10. I like this film because I knew nothing about it before going to see it. And I was just thoroughly captivated from the opening, and that's Exit Through the Gift Shop. I just knew very little. I know that it was on the festival circuit and people had been raving about it, but I really didn't know much about it, and I just sort of became engrossed in this story. The best thing I'd do is probably read the little synopsis on IMDb, the story of how an eccentric French shopkeeper and amateur filmmaker attempted to locate and befriend Banksy, who's like the most famous graffiti artist, and only to have the artist turn the camera back on its owner. And it's that, and it's about obsession and just madness, but it just showed me this whole world I didn't know existed. And that's what I really loved about it. I just really just was pleasantly caught off guard and just captivated the whole time. And I just could not take my eyes off it.
I've heard lots of raves about this film. In general, Jerry, do you think it's been a good year for documentaries?
Yes, I do. This is the only documentary I have on my list. There were a couple of other documentaries I saw that I really liked, but this is just the one that really, for me, was just wow. I could not stop. While you were watching it, you're just like, wow, this is really incredible.
Well, I do need to check it out. That's available on video now, isn't it?
Yeah,
DVD,
I think it
video.
is.
On the video?
On the video, yes. Yeah. On the video, yes.
Yeah. You can get it on a reel-to-reel, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 10 is Let Me In, which is the remake of Let the Right One In. And you can argue back and forth about whether or not this film is necessary, since such a great original film existed just a couple of years ago. But, very few movies are, necessary.
Right.
Necessarily. But this is an immaculately crafted, beautifully done, moody, atmospheric film with great performances. The kids are just exceptional, especially. And I like that it's very patient, like the original. Very moody, atmospheric, not afraid to be quiet. It finds tremendous emotion in the silences between the shocks. And it's very imaginatively directed. I mean, one of the best sequences of the year is that car crash.
Right.
I think, in it. So I was really impressed by it. I think that this film is every bit as good as the original. I mean, I might put the original just a tad bit above because that's what I was exposed to that first. I mean, that made the first impression on me with the story. But I was really impressed by it. It's my favorite horror film of the year. The other great horror films of the year, for me, were The Crazies, and I had a lot of fun with Paranormal Activity, too, I got to admit. So, but Let Me In.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with it at all, actually, because a lot of people didn't see the original, first of all, so this is those who did see it. But I also gave me a lot of hope for the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo remake that's coming. I was really impressed how Matt Reeves really handled this, and the performances, I think, are first rate in the film.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Very much so, and you could tell that there was a big investment that he made in the real horror of the story being the kids being alienated and picked upon and preyed upon. We all can kind of relate to that too. I mean, that's where it drew its emotion from. Okay, Chris, what's your number 9?
Number 9 is the movie that I just talked about a little while ago, The Inside Job. That's the only documentary that appears on my list. And it's simple. It's just straightforward, comprehensive, sort of educational piece, really. More akin to something you'd see on PBS or something like that than something Michael Moore would make. Nothing against Michael Moore. I love Michael Moore. But this is just more of a comprehensive history lesson about how this whole thing got started and how it went down, and it's completely fascinating. And the filmmaker deserves a lot of credit for not only compiling all of this data and information and interviews, but for also taking these people to task for the ones he was allowed to, or the ones who would let him interview them. He really takes them to task for their part in it, and so it's just everything you could ask for from a documentary. It's educational, it's entertaining, it's well put together and well researched, and I recommend it to everyone from both sides of the aisle. It's also not partisan. I mean, it really takes
not at all.
Yeah, I mean, it really kind of nails most politicians from the last 30 or so years on both sides of the aisle. Nails them up pretty good, and rightfully so, as well as the financial institutions. It's just an excellent documentary.
I keep dropping my keyboard. I'm so sorry. It is a great documentary, and it very much needs that confrontation. In it, because these people, I mean, just outright lies, denials.
And it's still going
obvious.
on. Still going on. I mean, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not like.
Right.
I mean, it's much actually with the bonuses and everything that are coming out and everything. It's like nothing. It's what's really sad about this is as you're watching this, you're just like, you know what? Nothing has changed, and no one's doing anything. Hopefully, you hope like Elizabeth Warren and people like that maybe can lessen the pain. But it's just like there are two articles. One in the latest Harper's and one on the Atlantic Monthly. That's just not really much. It's getting worse, if not better, just worse.
Yeah.
Okay, Jerry, number 9.
The Ghostwriter.
Very good.
Okay, I got to say, there's so many films that I want to put on this list, but I have to. I would be a hypocrite not to include this. Because we just always, when we mentioned it, this film is going to be forgotten. This film is going to be forgotten at the end of the year. So I had to put it in there. It was just one of those films that you should, from start to finish, it's fascinating. But it's just an excellent thriller. It shows that Polanski has not lost his touch at all. He gives, I think, Pierce Brosnan one of his best performances, and Ewan McGregor his absolute best performance. And in a film, I think he's wonderful as the ghost, as the title. And I think Olivia Williams walks away with the movie. She's just like quintessential. It's amazing. And that's why I just love everything unravels, everything is just a new layer every couple of minutes you learn something new, and it's not like convoluted. It's like makes sense, actually. It makes perfect sense. You're watching this unfold, and the book was written by Robert Harris as an indictment against Tony Blair. He made no secret he didn't hide that at all. This was, as far as he was concerned, this was about Tony Blair. And I just thought the mannerisms that Brosnan brought, especially that speech on the airplane towards the end he gives to McGregor's character, is just wonderful. Absolutely just. And
it's also slightly funny. I mean, because he's playing a little bit of a dullard, a little bit of a moron, Brosnan is.
Yeah.
It's a great film. I'm sure we'll probably be talking about that more a little bit later. My number 9 is Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Good.
And I think it's one of the, coupled with another movie here on my list, I think it's one of the most kind of movie-ish experiences of the year. I mean, it's completely drunk on cinema, this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the choice to do it the way they did it, which is this very hyperkinetic, just sensory bombardment experience. And once you make the decision to do that stylistically with this film, you got to carry it all the way. And they maintained it. I mean, that level of energy and inventiveness and creativity. I mean, it's almost an exhausting film. And it's, but you feel like you got so much movie out of it.
Yeah. It's the movie's kind of like. Sorry, go ahead.
Just one more thing, and I do say that kids today and I said this to you, Jerry, before, kids today that watch something like Transformers and they're inspired to make movies based on that,
right.
Whereas us, we would watch stuff like E.T. and that kind of thing. I'd be happy if kids watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and they got inspired to go into movie making from watching that, because that's real creative genius in that film. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, that's absolutely true what you just said, and I think that it is going to be one of those movies, probably more so than any other movie this year, that has a following and a fervor around it that grows throughout time. Out of all the movies released this year, I think this is probably the one that you'll hear more and more about in a Big Lebowski type way.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I hope so. I sure hope so. I don't know what kind of other life it's getting on DVD. I mean, I'm sure it did reasonably well, probably a lot better than it did in its theatrical run. But I hope it gets its due.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yes. It should also be mentioned that on Blu-ray, it's one of the best looking and sounding movies I've ever seen on a Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll have to check that out then.
It's absolutely stunning. Yeah.
That's how I saw it. Yeah. It's energy. I mean, it's all energy. Okay. Jerry, let's go to your number 8, and then we'll go to Chris's number 8.
My number 8, if you will forgive me, I had to mention 2 movies because they're both related in some way, and it's the only time I did this on this year. So
you always do this.
But I did it numerously on the 2008 show. Okay.
You're doing very well. That's good. That's good.
Okay, Winter's Bone and True Grit. They're linked. The reason I linked them together is because the performances of both lead actresses is just incredible. I think Hallie Stanfield's performance in True Grit is just unbelievable. But before that, I mean, I kind of wish the year would have ended in June almost when I saw Winter's Bone, because I would have said that was the best film of the year in one sense. I think Jennifer Lawrence's performance, and this is one thing I can echo, is you felt watching her character's performance, the weight of the world on her shoulders.
Right.
Every scene, as we go, it's also just a great actually crime film on one level, but then it's just a great the director of that, who also did Down to the Bone with Vera Farmiga, she's just great at depicting this. As someone called it hillbilly noir on Twitter a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if I go with that description so much, but there is this backwoods rural thing that she gets right both times that I've only seen David Gordon Green really do in his early films. And so much more Terrence Malick in Another Age, too. But it's just Jennifer Lawrence's, the camera, you're just fixated on her and everything that she's going through. And I couldn't get over that. And True Grit, I just had to put in there just her performance alone. But, we talked about this the other night. Matt Damon, I thought, was incredible in that film as well. Just an awesome supporting performance. But both of those, the lead performances are incredible.
Winter's Bone and True Grit, back to back. Okay. And a good year for female actresses as opposed to male actresses?
Yes, exactly, yes.
Okay, Chris, you're number 8.
Number 8 for me is The Kids Are All Right, which I'm hoping picks up the award for Best Comedy this year, since it's not only the only comedy in the category, but also the only movie worthy of being in the category at the Golden Globes.
What else is in there, out of curiosity?
Oh, God, I can't. It's like Alice in Wonderland.
The Tourist, and Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, The Tourist, Red. It's ridiculous as often as that category is.
Yeah, that is the only film that deserves. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I think.
But if I'm not mistaken, we did predict Alice in Wonderland would pick it up, because we're talking about the Globes.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that Kids Are All Right will win it, but I would not drop my gin and tonic if Alice in Wonderland did win it. I wouldn't flip out. But anyway, back to the movie. Very well written, extremely well acted. Everybody talks about Julianne Moore and Annette Bening, but they're both good. But Annette Bening is far greater in the movie than Julianne Moore is. Julianne Moore is very dependable and very, that's the word, dependable. She plays it well. Annette Bening is completely transcendent. She's not Annette Bening in any way.
Right.
Mark Ruffalo, fantastic. Usually Mark Ruffalo plays a guy who somebody wants to fuck in the movie. This time he plays a guy that about 8 different people want to fuck. So
That's good.
And the movie has something to say, and I love a movie that's got something to say, and I thought it said it very, very well.
Okay, so that's your number 8. The kids
That's a
are
great
all right.
pick. Good for you. That's a really good pick.
My number 8 is Toy Story 3. Who would have thought that I would have an animated film in my top 10?
I'm
and
shocked.
I'm
shocked.
Yeah, it was one of the films that I was extremely moved by this year.
Yeah,
you know, and that's always kind of what I follow is what moves me. I thought it was just beautifully directed. Everybody talks about the formula and how Pixar has the formula down, but such inventive direction. I mean, some of the best action sequences you'll see this year in Toy Story 3. I mean, the way they're realized and choreographed, you know, it's amazing, this movie to me. So that is my number 8. Chris, your number 7.
My number 7 is I'm kind of cheating, but Jerry picked 2 movies, so I'm going to cheat here too.
Yeah, that's all right. Please go ahead.
Yeah, number 7 is the HBO movie Temple Grandin with Claire Danes, which if it were released in theaters, no one would be talking about Annette Bening or Natalie Portman and Black Swan for Best Actress. Claire Danes would be walking away with the Oscar for Best Actress had this movie been released in theaters. Of course, it was not.
I think you're right.
It's absolutely stunning performance by Claire Danes, who I never really cared about. She's, unbelievable. I was not one way or the other about Claire Danes. My wife hated Claire Danes, did not like Claire Danes, and was nuts about the movie. So that'll tell you a lot. And the movie itself is fantastic. It's very well written, very well acted, very well directed. It's very inventive and very playful. And not enough people saw it, so I hope that more people go out and rent it or DVR it or something.
It was very emotional.
So Temple Grandin, she suffers from autism.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. What I didn't get to see the movie. What's particularly extraordinary about her story?
What's particularly extraordinary is the way that she sort of uses her own disability to sort of find something. She sort of deals with it and says, okay, I've got this disability. How am I going to make it work for me? And that's exactly what she does. She makes it work in this world that she gets into as far as the humane treatment of animals and things like that. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's the whole movie. And it also is sort of a biographical story on top of that about how she grew up, and how she learned to get control of it. And we've seen these kinds of performances before, or we've seen these kind of movies, I should say, someone growing up with a disability. But this one really puts a fresh take on it, mainly through her performance, really. And a good supporting cast, too. David Strathairn is in it. Very, very, very strong supporting cast.
And another Golden Globe contender tonight, I'm sure, for Best Actress.
Yeah, hopefully a winner. Should be a winner.
Just want to add something. Chris said something very important. It was how to make the disability to conquer it and everything. And it is a very inspiring story. And I think Chris has really given it the best description I've ever heard since it's been on television. So it is very inspiring.
Well, thank you.
And that is an HBO film.
Yes.
Okay, Jerry, you're number 7.
My number 7 is, and I want to put my money where my mouth is, Greenberg.
Number 7.
Number 7.
Wow.
Yeah. Wait, why wow? Before I go.
I thought that would be your number 1. But okay.
No, my number 1 will. I think my number 1 will shock everyone. But
that's exciting. I'm excited now, man.
Okay, no, Greenberg. It's like the thinking. It's the. I like it. No, I'm not just saying this to piss Armand White off and make him have a heart attack, although that is in the cards. But it's one of the best films I've seen this year that sort of managed to marry 90s independent American cinema with turn-of-the-century mumblecore, and the performances are first rate. I do think, it's Ben Stiller's Punch Drunk Love in some ways. I know a lot of people want to say that about Jonah Hill and Cyrus, another very good movie, but there's just not enough slots to put it in, but I think that this is Ben Stiller's best performance in my book since Permanent Midnight and The Royal Tenenbaums.
Without a doubt, yeah.
I know that's not hard to say looking at the other films that have come in between those, but it's good. Greta Gerwig is a revelation. Noah Baumbach's direction has never been this self-assured before, and it's always been good, but there's something he's done here, and it's interesting. I watched Kicking and Screaming again before this came out, and I wanted to see if this was like a grown-up version of that, and in one sense it's really not. It's really like, what if the Jesse Eisenberg character or the Margot's son and Margot at the wedding had grown up? This is what they'd turn into? Because he's just as monstrous as the parents in those films. And it has I think one of the best lines of the year, hurt people, hurt people. And I think that sums up the film beautifully. And it's a beautiful-looking film about Los Angeles. I think it's great that Baumbach transplanted himself from the East Coast to the West Coast here. There's scenes I'll never forget. I just think the musical cues and James Murphy of LCD Sound System, his score is wonderful. I don't have any problem with the film. I just thought it was very relatable. It's like a very realistic version of what it means to grow up and the choice that we're having to live with the decisions we made. And I think another performance that doesn't get enough credit is Rice Ethan's performance. His character is so important, and this guy has like the patience of a saint. And when he finally confronts Greenberg at the end, it's just this really cathartic moment. I think a very good movie, incredibly good.
Good. I mean, I like what you said about combining the '90s independent film with the mumblecore movement. Those two intersect with Greenberg.
Yeah, thank you.
I do think it's a very, very good movie. And Chris, you concur about the quality of it?
I do. I liked Greenberg quite a bit. It's one of those movies that would be on my top 20. But I did not think it was. I didn't feel like it was in the same category as Squid and the Whale or Margot at the Wedding, but I thought it was very, very close. I mean, it was, very close.
There's two pieces of kind of a little outside of what we've been talking about, but two pieces of information I want to share in relation to Greenberg.
Okay.
Indirect pieces of information. Criterion just announced their April releases, Jerry.
Yes, I know.
And Blowout, De Palma's Blowout is in there, featuring a new hour-long interview with De Palma conducted by Noah Baumbach.
That's awesome. I can't wait for that to come out.
Yeah, and next week, another indirect piece of information, next week we'll be welcoming on none other than Margot at the Wedding Kidder as a guest.
Oh, awesome.
That's very indirectly related.
Yeah, really.
I like how you tied it in, though. I like how you did that.
Yeah. Okay, a king of segues. Okay, my number 7 is, we don't have to talk about it too much if you guys don't want to, because I'm sure it'll appear farther up on both of your lists, is The Social Network. That is my number 7, David Fincher, his take on Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. So we'll be talking about that later on, I'm sure. Number 6. Go ahead, Jerry.
Just say, was it something that came to mind, though? I mean, besides the obvious what we've talked about in the show.
Yeah. Give your quick Castle review.
Yeah, please.
I think it's the screenplay of the year. It's one of those movies that I relished all the components of the way it was shot, the performances, the dialogue, which I'm just a sucker for great dialogue. But for me, as a whole, it wasn't as emotionally fulfilling as I wanted it to be.
Okay.
This was the one movie I was most looking forward to this year. This and True Grit. And I think it's just such an extremely well done, confident film. But I didn't get what I wanted to from it. But the pieces themselves are so exemplary that it deserves a spot on my list. So, and I will be watching it. Another thing about this list for me is there are lots of movies that I saw that I really loved this year. Inside Job. There are a couple of others.
Right.
But what am I most likely to actually go back and rewatch?
Yeah,
I hear you.
Exactly.
And I do think I'm going to be rewatching Social Network many times throughout the years. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, your number. What are we up to? 6.
Number 6. Are we up there? Yeah. Holy shit, we are.
Yeah.
All right. Number 6 for me is David O. Russell's The Fighter. I should say David O. Russell and Mark Wahlberg's The Fighter.
Right.
Because I think that he was probably more. It's probably more his movie than it is David O. Russell's. Although I can feel the influence of David O. Russell very heavily in the movie, as far as the humor in it goes. Yeah. I'd be interested to know how much humor was in the movie before David O. Russell got involved. Just out of curiosity. I'm sure there was some, but I think it was a great choice finally going with him. Because if I had to guess, I would say that would be the thing that he brought that was most important. Because it's not really a movie or a screenplay or a story that requires a lot of directing prowess necessarily. We've all seen fighter movies, we've all seen boxing movies done ad nauseum, and some one or two of the greatest movies of all time are boxing movies. So that part's not important, but the humor that he brought along is what sort of made it special. And of course, the performances are all quite good. Everyone talks about Christian Bale, and he deserves everyone to talk about him. And I think he probably deserves the award too. But Mark Wahlberg himself is, in a very, very subtle way, quite good, and Amy Adams also, in a very, very subtle way, is quite good also.
She's phenomenal.
Yeah, she is.
And just between us, because no one else out there is listening, I think this is the sexiest Amy Adams has ever been too.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
Much sexier than she was in Doubt. Let me just
Okay.
Even though, Chris, I know you have your nun fantasy, so you might not agree with that. So.
Well, she's no Deborah Carr. Okay.
Oh, that's not a fantasy anymore, by the way.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's a reality.
All right, Jerry, your number 6?
My number 6, we've already talked about, and it is in many ways, I think, kind of like The Fighter, because it's very about overcoming something, and that's The King's Speech. I agree with everything that Chris said. I just want to add one thing to the movie, and that's Helena Bonham Carter's performance. I love when she acts outside of Tim Burton's films, because we're reminded how good she is, and she's just really good in this film. And her chemistry, you talk about chemistry, her chemistry with everyone in the film is very good. I also just think Colin Firth is just wonderful in this film, and I think Jeffrey Rush too is just. I mean, I know he won an Oscar for Shine, but he's just incredible in this, and there are little performances too. I believe that we have
Guy Pearce.
Guy Pearce is in it. Anthony Andrews has a very small part. He's from the original Brideshead Revisited series.
Tim Spall.
Claire Bloom is in this. But it's all around. It's like one of these films. When I first heard about it, I was like, okay. It's like The Young Victoria. When I first heard about that, I was like, blasé. But when I saw it, I was just like, wow, this is really good. And the same for me with The King's Speech. It's like, wow, this is really. I like this guy, how he overcomes his stuttering problem, and how there's also just a great line in the film, and it's the one in the trailer, but when his daughter asks what is that man saying, and they're watching the film of Hitler, and he goes, I don't know, but he's obviously saying it quite well.
Right.
I thought that was a very telling scene. It's just a really, really good film, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely have to go see The King's Speech.
Yeah, you do.
My number 6 is Mike Leigh's new film, Another Year.
I can't wait to see this.
I think it's his best film in years. I mean, he's got such a string of just fantastic films, but this one was very moving to me, and just a duo of exceptional performances from Jim Broadbent and Leslie Manville, and a real look at relationships and kind of contrasting where you get to that level of comfort with a mate and how that reflects how comfortable you are in your own skin. And then you couple that, and that's the Jim Broadbent subplot with his wife, and then you couple that with Leslie Manville, who is this ball of frustration and bitterness and failed dreams, and how desperate she is to be loved and liked, and she just can't find it because she can't find it within herself. it's a beautiful movie, and like all Mike Leigh movies, it's an actor's piece.
Mm-hmm.
So if you relish the great work of great actors, there's really no finer movie this year on that basis. So if this is playing near you, go see it. It's phenomenal. Very funny too. I mean, it has some of the funniest scenes, just the way he allows several of his scenes to play out, and these are almost like stage plays where the scenes really do breathe. So you have 10-minute scenes here, and they're beautifully played. So go see Another Year. That's my number 6.
I'm glad you put this on the list because I just watched it this morning, and I thought it was going to make my list, but it just didn't because I loved it and felt exactly the way you just described about it. I thought all those things are very, very true. Some of the scenes go on a long time, and about 3 minutes into it, you're thinking to yourself, wow, that's a really long scene. And by the end of it, you realize that these people have just been talking for 10 or 11 minutes, and you've just learned far more about the characters than you could have in another movie. You really know these characters quite well, not just by the end of the movie, but 20, 30 minutes into the movie, you know these characters very, very well. And you can
That's
almost,
a great point.
You can almost see what they're about to do and how they're going to react to things before they happen. You know them so well.
You don't learn about them by plot. You learn about them by their conversations between each other, and
their own action.
And this scene, like one of the highlight scenes for me, and I asked Leslie Manville about this too in the interview that we did with her, is the scene between she and Jim Broadbent's brother. It's that log scene on the porch where they're smoking, and it's funny and it's tragic at the same time, and very sad and sweet.
Yeah, very awkward.
I mean, because he's so monosyllabic. But she is so desperate to make a connection, and she offers to take care of him. And there's something so bittersweet about that scene, and funny, too. I think that's one of the great scenes of the year, actually, for me personally.
Yeah, the movie has many of them. Great, great performances. And I do think that the wife, Ruth Jean, has been sort of underplayed in a lot of the talk about the movie. She's like a fucking oak tree in this movie. Like, she doesn't seem like she's doing much, but after a couple scenes of her doing what it is she's doing, you realize she's doing quite a bit.
She's an anchor, Yeah.
Great movie.
All right. Jerry, number 5. Number 5
okay,
is alive.
This is the part of the program where I have to say that all of them are just there's equal love. This is where I just like rip my hair out. So number 5, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Okay.
Jamie, I agree with everything you said. I agree with everything that both of you said. The women walk away with this movie. All the actresses in this movie just literally just walk away with it. Having said that, though, Kieran Culkin, just wonderful as his roommate. What I really like about this movie, though, is that it's very faithful to the comic books. Scott Pilgrim's kind of a dick. He's not the nicest guy. He's really lucky how he ends up because he's just not the greatest guy. And I think Michael Cera pulls it off beautifully. That he can make this character. Well, he's not the most likable person in the world, and but Edgar Wright's genius here is he surrounds him with all these wonderful, colorful characters that are all even characters are only like 1 or 2 scenes that are so interesting. That you're like, wow, what's their story? And you don't really need them there that much because they say so much, even when they don't, just by a couple lines of dialogue. It's just this movie. I only have one tiny gripe with this movie. The fight scenes go on a little bit too long. That's the only thing I can think of that's wrong with the movie. The original soundtrack by Nigel Godrich is great, who is from Radiohead. The musical selections are flawless. It is like someone said, it's the hipster version of The Godfather. That may very well be true, but it's just an awesome film. I love it.
Good. Okay. Chris, number 5.
Number 5 for me is the Coen Brothers' True Grit. I read the book earlier this year and then saw the original movie for the first time. I had not seen it before. And then a couple months later saw the remake. So I love the book. I think Charles Portis wrote a great little Western book that was very, very funny and had a very specific mood to it. The original movie got the tone completely wrong. It just wasn't there. and did not have the sense of humor at all. It was completely off. I mean, they really just turned it into a John Wayne movie, which is fine if you like John Wayne movies,
right.
but I don't. This movie got it completely right. I mean, they got the tone. They changed a couple things from the book up, just like the first movie did, and that's fine, as long as you get the tone and the mood and the humor right, and they did. I loved it, and I liked the Coen. I liked seeing the Coen brothers in this mode where they can just make something that's very simple and very easy to digest, and it's sort of for everyone. I don't think that every movie has to be, and I thought they injected enough of themselves in it for it to still feel like a Coen brothers to me. I know a lot of people say it doesn't, and that's fine, but to me, I didn't get that. I definitely felt like it was a Coen brothers movie, and a very, very good one. I mean, they've certainly made worse movies, like that Intolerable Cruelty.
That is true.
Killers
I think The Lady Killers is really the one truly bad film, I think.
Yes, agreed. Yes, very much so. And this is not that. I mean, this is good work. I do think that they are back on a streak now, and hopefully it lasts a long time, just like their first streak did.
Okay, so your number 5, True Grit. My number 5 is The Fighter.
Yeah.
So I was really incredibly moved by the film. And as I've said to both of you guys and on the show before, I'm sure, that obviously it's a performance-rich movie. Christian Bale is astounding in it, but I really admire the fact that Mark Wahlberg does allow himself to be in the background of the film, even though he's technically the lead in it, because that reflects his character's place in that family. He always felt like he was in the background of that family. And so he takes kind of front and center towards the end of it, which feels emotionally right. And I don't know that under any other creative talents that they would have been able to pull that off as well. I mean, this movie is really deeply felt by everyone involved in the making of it. You can sense that. And it has a very, like another title coming up in my list, it has a very authentic sense of place and of the people that populate that place. It doesn't feel showboaty or phony or like, we're going to act extreme, like these extreme personalities.
Right.
It feels genuine.
Yes, it does.
So that is my number 5. Jer? What's your number 4? Jer? Hang on, Jerry. Hang on. Let's see if I can pull this up. I got a little sound clip here from you, actually. Do you remember saying this?
Spanking the Monkey. I think Spanking the Monkey is very bold. Why wish you wouldn't knock my hobbies, man? Jesus Christ. And how interesting that you talked about David O. Russell, and I am going to talk about David O. Russell, the fighter.
Was Spanking the Monkey, and you're
Spanking the Monkey.
4,
I've been following ever since he spanked the monkey. But it's true. I don't think David O. Russell's made a bad movie yet, and The Fighter is no exception. It's everything that you guys said. I mean, I can't really add much more, and I said so much controversial stuff that several people deleted me after I spoke about it on the show a couple of weeks ago. It was that good, that powerful. It's a great film, and I think that you both are dead on about Wahlberg. He comes through at the very end, and it's a different film. It's an inspirational film on many levels, but it's a different kind of boxing film, I think, from Rocky or The Champ or anything, or Golden Boy or anything. This is really about him just trying to come out of his brother's shadow. Because it's really up until the documentary is shown on TV, it's like the mother is just she is the mother from hell. I mean, she and Jackie Weaver from Animal Kingdom. There's a whole subcategory here that you can make of movies that came out about evil mothers this year, but she's just, this guy is getting beaten, not in the ring so much, but also at home. I mean, he's just being pounded at home constantly, and you really feel for him. He's like he reminded me a lot of Adam Sandler's character in Punch Drunk Love. He's just getting beaten and beaten and beaten, and he has but at least here he has the boxing, at least, the fighting, this catharsis that he can use. Christian Bale is incredible in this film. You never know this guy played Batman or Patrick Bateman watching this performance, and I think the scene where he watches the HBO documentary in jail, this look on his face and how it's just, I was like, wow, that's incredible. But I think this is probably my favorite Amy Adams movie, and I like her in quite a few things. But this is, I think, she's playing against type, and she does it wonderfully. Just
for me, I think the mother, yes, is very tough and very selfish, but you see in that one scene in the boxing ring when he's training and he shuns his brother when he gets out of jail, you see that the mother depended upon Mark Wahlberg to hold the family together, to the detriment of actually seeing how she was not paying attention to Mark Wahlberg's needs or not acknowledging him as she should have.
That's a good point.
I never got a sense that, and it's a credit to Melissa Leo, that in spite of all that roughness and that mother from Hell Quality, that she didn't love her boys. You know,
she did. You're absolutely right. She did love the sisters.
And it is tragic, and it's something I know about, and it's something that I was really moved by the film. That when a child is in trouble, and the mother's love is so strong, she wants to deny that he's in trouble. You know, he's a good boy, and it's so moving to me. The mother's love, you know, and that rang true for me near the end of her performance. In that film.
You're right.
Number 4, Chris, for you.
Number 4 for me is Chris Nolan's Inception. Another movie. I love that music so much. Yeah. And it's a movie that I loved when I first saw it. I think it's the only movie that I went and saw twice this year in the theater, more out of necessity than out of love. I really just needed to figure it out. And then I fell in love with it again on Blu-ray. I do think that Scott Pilgrim and Inception are probably the two most beautiful Blu-rays yet made.
Yeah.
And this movie
about Inception so much,
Yeah, it looks and sounds fantastic on Blu-ray, and I just thought it was a lot of fun. It was like the movie version of a Rubik's Cube or something like that. Something that I think that, like a Rubik's Cube, a lot of people will get enjoyment out of, even though they've solved in quotes, over and over again. I think that it's just something that I know, because I already have, gone back to it time and again to sort of try and unravel it. And so the movie's almost like it really is like a toy that you want to go back and play with and sort of look at from a different angle and sort of think about from a different perspective. And it's really kind of ingenious in that way.
Now I have a question for you, Chris. The movie is really exceptional as an intellectual exercise. For me, does it strike you on an emotional chord as well?
Does it strike me on an emotional chord? No, the movie does not really resonate with me. The scenes at the end when DiCaprio is back with his family, that doesn't emotionally, strike with me necessarily. But I think that the other sort of face of the movie is so strong that that's not really necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, I see your point, and it's true, it doesn't. But
it is interesting, though. Because Chris Nolan said when he talked about why it took him 10 years to write the script, he said, I'd worked out the plot and the different kind of directions it goes in and connected the dots, but what took so long was finding an emotional core to it.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that the Cillian Murphy story connects far better than the primary emotional story, which is Leonardo DiCaprio's. I mean, the Cillian Murphy is kind of a sub-story, sort of the skeleton of the whole con that they're trying to pull off. But actually, that part works better emotionally than the DiCaprio story does. The whole DiCaprio and what's her name, Mal,
yeah. Okay, so we're up to my number 4. My number 4 is The Town. I was crazy about this movie, and I just recently saw it. Last month I finally caught up with it and watched it. I thought it was great. I thought it was equal parts like, I know people reference the Friends of Eddie Coyle a lot in reference to it, which I surprisingly enough, I didn't like the Friends of Eddie Coyle, and it seemed to be the movie that I would connect with big time, since I love 70s cinema. But I mean, I felt that sense of community in the town.
Right.
I felt the authenticity of that crime unit, And I also felt a tinge of heat in the action sequences. Very confidently done, brilliantly directed by Affleck, and he's very good in it too as a performer. It has a lot of pieces of it that can be contrived, falling in love with a hostage and that whole thing, and breaking up that you feel like you've seen in a lot of films, but it felt real to me. Mm-hmm. It felt organic to the story, like they weren't playing the contrivance, because they wrapped it around such a sense of realism and reality in that world that they created, that the contrivances didn't come across that way for me. Jeremy Renner's great in it. Rebecca Hall, great action. John Hamm is very good in it.
Yes.
It's got a great cast. Blake Lively?
Good.
I mean, come
Blake
on.
Lively's good. John Hamm's really good. Really top-notch in that.
Pete Postlethwaite, final performance,
mm-hmm.
I think, that we're going to see from him. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my number 4.
That's a great number 4. I really was I wanted so badly to put that in the top 10. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't find room to take out something else, but I do. It's a great movie.
So you're number 3, Jerry.
We've already talked about this movie, so I'm just going to read one of my favorite quotes from it. You are probably going to be a very successful computer person, but you're going to go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that won't be true. It's because you're an asshole. David Fincher's The Social Network. When I first read about this movie, I was like, oh my God, they're going to make a movie about Facebook and how wonderful Mark Zuckerberg is. As we got closer to the release date, it became very clear this is not this is not something to make Mark Zuckerberg look good, not at all. But it makes him, it's a realistic, it's an even-handed is not the right word, but it's a realistic portrayal of the founding of Facebook, and one of the best films I've seen dealing with the Ivy League in the 21st century and the origins of, one of the most important...
Better than Stallman?
Better than what? Stallman, we could spend a whole show comparing the two, but I'm not going to do that right now because we don't have the time. But it's just... I like everything. The movie is the marriage of David Fincher and Aaron Sorkin. I think this is my favorite Sorkin scripted film that really matches, I think, The West Wing, his writing on The West Wing, I think, without a doubt. There's just a lot of little things in this movie I like. It's the soundtrack, everything. All the performances are very good. But it's Jesse Eisenberg, like Michael Cera and Scott Pilgrim, taking everything that's worked before them for and against them in films. Their little ticks and everything, and making it work for them in ways that takes them to the next level, especially Eisenberg here. This is really a grade A performance.
I think so, too. I think he definitely deserves to be up there with Best Actor.
Yeah.
But, what also strikes me is Sorkin is my favorite writer.
Yeah.
It's just delicious dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't write cinematically. So his films have the risk of being stage plays. This one could have easily been like that.
Oh.
So I appreciate Fincher making it cinematic, but making it cinematic in a way that doesn't distract from the dialogue and doesn't showboat, which had to have been a really difficult balancing act. He's a truly great director. I mean, a kind of method versatile director, because he sinks into different material effortlessly, and I didn't think that could happen with a Fincher, someone so singular as like a stylist,
Right.
I didn't think that he could do that, but he's doing it. Okay, so where does that leave us? That's your number 3.
Yeah.
Chris, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is I have a feeling it's going to show up pretty high in all 3 of our lists, maybe higher than any other movie. Black Swan, Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan. I thought it was a big return to form for Darren Aronofsky. Probably his best movie since Requiem for a Dream, and really the only other movie of his that I've identified with outside of that one. I thought it just screams artsy fartsy, like the preview.
Yeah.
The whole idea of Aronofsky making a movie about ballet screams artsy fartsy. Like, he's gonna make a RoboCop movie, he's gonna make a Wolverine movie, he's gonna make a Batman movie. Nope. I'm going to make a thriller about dance. And it just like, really? And then I went and saw it, and it's not that way at all. It doesn't,
not at all.
It doesn't play out that way. It really does play out like a legitimate thriller, but more about what someone's own brain can do to them. When they really get all up in their own head about who they are as a person and who they want to be or who they think they want to be. And I think the movie speaks really, really brilliantly about those sorts of notions. And it's also legitimately scary and legitimately really kind of fantastical. Like it in a lot of ways, like the kind of movie that Alice in Wonderland sort of wants to be, but can't. And this really, really pulls it off.
Yeah, I agree. We'll be talking about that in a little bit again.
Yeah, we will.
My number 3 is The Ghost Rider. Polanski's best in years, one of the great, moody, confidently done thrillers. If you want to know how to make a thriller, an intelligent one with great characters, watch The Ghost Rider. It's a wonderful movie, and we've talked about that all year. And I think Ewan McGregor is the performance to watch. I think it's the easiest kind of performance to dismiss because he doesn't look like he's doing anything, but he's doing everything. He drives the whole story. You're seeing the movie completely through his eyes. He is the voyeur in the movie for you. It's a performance of action. You know, it's not a performance of big emotional scenes. He defines he drives the story and defines his character by action. It's a brilliant movie, and I'm glad that Polanski's creatively back with it. And I look forward to Gods of Carnage, which he's shooting now. That should be really good too. Okay, Jer, you're number 10. You're number 2.
Number 2. My number 2, we've already talked about, Inception, and it's first of all, it's just the music. But I will say this: every time going back to watch it, and I've gone and watched it several times on Blu-ray. I see something new, and I also think the movie means something completely different than the previous viewing. I keep latching on to little things here and there. I like Chris Nolan. He brings out the best in everyone. There's not a bad performance in the film. I don't think there's a bad I think in all of his films, everyone ratchets up their performances, and they bring everything they have to the table. Obviously here, Tom Hardy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Marion Cotillard, and the real standout is Ellen Page, playing against type. She's not playing anything that she's played before, and it's really, really refreshing. And you sort of need her because she asks the questions. She's sort of like explaining things to us along the way, what's going on, and you do need her character in this. I'm not going to go into what I think the movie means because, like I said, I've come up with a new meaning after each viewing, and I think that's really impressive to go back and watch a film and you feel like you're watching it for the first time almost.
It's really about the plight of the American Indian. Isn't it about how Kubrick faked the moon landing?
The moon landing hoax. But it's just it's wonderful. It's just an incredible film.
Good. All right, and that's one that just missed my list. There's that one, The Other Guys, which I think is the funniest movie of the year.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Kick-Ass, Inside Job, and the Joan Rivers documentary. Those just missed my top 10.
Yeah, I hear you.
Halfway through the year, they were in my top 10, but no more. It's funny. Chris, you're number 2.
All right, let me drop a big number 2 here. My number 2 is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. We've talked about it a whole bunch, so I'm not going to go on at length about it. I just think that it was it was the second most exhilarating experience I had at a movie this year. And I was not a fan of the books like you were, Jerry. I was not a fan. I didn't know of them.
Right. I didn't know about them. Yeah.
I just like Edgar Wright, and I like Michael Cera, and it looked interesting, so I went and saw it. And Jamie, you're right about sort of the energy that the movie has and the sort of love of cinema that they sort of instill from the opening shot. I mean, literally, it's got a kind of a tone and a pace to it that's very kind of off-putting, and it's actually kind of annoying at first a little bit. Like, as you're watching it, it's like, this is going to be annoying, this is going to get on my nerves, it's so hip and trendy. And then you sort of settle into it. I mean, you kind of have to like let yourself get used to it. It's like drinking pomegranate juice or something like that. It's like so acidic and like it's bothersome at first, but after a couple sips, like you can sort of, it's like, all right, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And the movie sort of works that way. You sort of settle into it, and it's like, all right, I can deal with this. I can deal with this tone because now I know what they're trying to do. And they do keep it up to the end of the movie, and for that reason, it becomes one of the most unique experiences that you've had at the movies this year, or any other year for that matter.
I agree.
And I think the movie is laugh out loud funny too.
Yeah.
Laugh out loud funny. Best comedy of the year.
And when I sit down to it again, I really have to be ready. I mean, I have to be ready for an exhausting kind of experience.
Right.
And I have to be. It's a movie that demands that you be attentive. There's no kind of lazy viewing of this film. I mean, you have to be in it. Okay, great choice. We're picking a lot of the same ones. It's a good year.
More so than any other year.
Yeah, I know.
I think so too. Black Swan is my number 2. I think it's a delirious movie. I love the creative energy of it. I love how it kind of parallels the creative process, like an artist's process, and how that can be kind of a schizophrenic process, a self-destructive process. The discipline kind of can destroy you. The rejection, blah, 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 on and on and on. I like how bold and theatrical it is. This is a bold theatrical director that I didn't see in The Wrestler. The Wrestler was a different animal altogether, but it didn't feel like an Aronofsky film to me, The Wrestler, in tone. It didn't. This one, he's playful. He's back in the game with this, I think. The Wrestler's fine. It's got a great lead performance, but without that lead performance, I don't think anyone would be talking about The Wrestler, personally.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
Yeah, Black Swan is amazing, and it's a jaw dropper. And that scene with Winona Ryder in the hospital with the pencil, a jaw dropper. One of the first times in years and years that I have shunned away from the movie screen because I've been so shocked by what's on it. And I love when a movie can do that to me. So it's a great movie. Our number ones, guys. We're up to number 1.
Okay, cool.
All right, Jerry. I can sense the excitement. Your number 1 film of 2010.
And I mean it wholeheartedly. And here it is, with the greatest last line, "Since there will be blood, I was perfect." Black Swan. It is the best film of 2010. The last half hour of this film, you guys have used all the right words, delirious, fantastical. I couldn't take my eyes off it. I just could not take my eyes off the film at all. I was so impressed with everyone's performances, but this is Natalie Portman's movie. She goes to places she's never gone to before as an actress. And I thought everyone really stepped up their game. Mila Kunis was very good in the supporting role. It was nice to see her do something new. Barbara Hershey was very good. Winona Ryder. Vincent Cassel was just great, and he's had an awesome year. With this in the French gangster epic Mesrine. But this is Aronofsky's film. This is everything that he loves to talk about. The desire, each film is really, I see the link to all the 4 previous films. They're all about, in one way, how do we get to be perfect? How do we rid ourselves of our ailments? In Pi, it is the quest for intellectual superiority. Requiem for a Dream, the diet pills, the wanting to be thin. Be perfect, and in the Fountain, about defeating death, essentially. In The Wrestler, well, Mickey Rourke's comeback. The his characters come back in wrestling, and what he'll do, the disfiguration of the body, and that's a constant theme, and the mutilation of the body is a constant theme in all of Aronofsky's work. That's why he's the perfect choice.
They're in The Wrestler. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, but he's the perfect choice for Wolverine. Talk about mutilating the body. You don't get any more mutilated than that. But no, Black Swan is perfect. I don't have any problem with it. It's incredible. I listen to the soundtrack. The soundtrack is playing right now every day. It's just an incredible movie. It just blew me away.
Mutilating the body. Would you say that Aronofsky is Cronenberg on coke?
Yeah, that's perfect. You've just summed it up. You know how we always talk about all these directors being influenced by De Palma or Kubrick? I think Aronofsky may be the first director fully influenced by David Cronenberg. That's absolutely correct, Jamie. That's perfect.
You know, another thing that I think is great about the movie is how dangerous it is.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott Pilgrim is the same way.
Yeah.
The approach that both filmmakers take with this material, it could have been disastrous.
Yes.
It could have just as well not have worked at all and been an embarrassment. But thank God for their boldness, because that boldness makes these movies stand out as strong as they are, you know. And people don't take chances like that enough anymore. So we're giving enormous credit to two movies in particular, Black Swan and Scott Pilgrim, that do take chances like none other this past year, I think.
Yeah.
Chris, your number one film of 2010.
My number one film, obviously, is The Social Network, David Fincher's Social Network. I have literally had a love-hate relationship with every movie that Fincher has made. I like every other movie I like, and the ones in between I do not like. Like, I loved Seven, did not like The Game, loved Fight Club, did not like Panic Room, loved Zodiac, did not like Benjamin Button, and then I love this movie. And I think it's one of those, I think you guys have said a lot of great stuff about it, and I think it's one of those movies that sort of through time we're going to look back on, and it's going to be one of the sort of pillar movies of this year. Like when you think back at the year 2010, there's going to be a handful of movies that come to mind. No matter what's nominated or no matter what wins Best Picture or what made the most money, there's a handful of pictures that sort of represent that year, and this will be one of the movies that represents that year. And everything works. The script, like Jamie said, is the best script of the year. I felt like it's photographically one of the crispest, most attractive-looking movies of the year, sort of quietly. No one talks about how great-looking it is. It has some great performances. It deals with a subject that could not be more current. I mean, it really is sort of fascinating, this whole phenomenon. And who cares if they did take some liberties with some of the things, some of the little personality idiosyncrasies of Mark Zuckerberg. It doesn't really matter, I mean, there's lots of famous stories. Citizen Kane is obviously about Hearst, and they took some liberties there, and it doesn't matter. And I think this will be that way throughout time. I think it'll be one of the pillars from 2010.
I think it bodes well for Zuckerberg, personally.
Yeah, it really does. That's the irony of it. And I just want to add something, and there's another. Everyone calls this the Facebook movie, and yes, it is about the origins of Facebook. It's really, you're doing the film a disservice by calling it the Facebook movie. That's another movie this year, Catfish. Catfish is really, I think, much more important in the sense that's really what Facebook, an aspect of Facebook that it explores, and that, to me, really is the Facebook experience. The Social Network is on a whole different level, really, than that.
It's really more about the story of young millionaires. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think if it survives, maybe it speaks to us too that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't come across poorly necessarily, that this movie might actually help him, because people see him shun his best friend and the kind of cutthroat way he goes about reaching the top as a very awkward, antisocial person, and being romanced by Timberlake's character, what's the name of the Napster guy?
John Parker, and that's a great performance.
I think it speaks to people are like, well, yeah, that's what you do if you have to get to the top. Yeah, I think that probably talks more of our culture.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
our culture of success than anything. All right, my number one film of 2010 is a movie that we haven't listed in any of our lists thus far.
I think I have a feeling I know what it is, but I'm not going to say it.
My number one of the year is a film called Barney's Version.
Oh, okay. No, I did not what I thought. Awesome. Okay.
Paul Giamatti, Dustin Hoffman. This is, for me, it was the most emotional film of the year. It's 40 years of the life of Giamatti's character and his family and friends. You feel like you've seen a lifetime go by in the course of the film. It's a very full, rich movie, very funny, emotional. It even contains a murder mystery. It's got some of the best chemistry between Hoffman and Giamatti as father and son that I've seen this year in film. And it also works as just a beautiful kind of love story. It's very true. I mean, I was laughing and crying throughout it. It's one of those movies that I hate to use the term feel good movie, but when it ends, you feel elevated. You feel different, like you've just been through something. You feel more connected in a way. It's a very human film, and I think it's very special. I don't think enough people are talking about it. It's open now in limited release, so if it's anywhere near you guys, go check it out.
That's a great choice.
Yeah.
But I know what I thought it was going to be was the Al Pacino movie. I thought that was going to be. I was thinking,
you don't know, Jack?
Yeah, I really know, because that's a very good movie, and I thought, wow, he might pull that. That might be the one.
It is a very good movie. It's a better performance.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Than a movie for me.
How did
Chris, were you saying something?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't finish.
Oh, okay.
No,
all right. Go ahead, Jerry.
No, how does it compare to Giamatti's performances in Sideways and American Splendor? Do you think it's better than
those? And he's not. Well, he's given more room to breathe. I mean, he's creating a character over the course of 40 years.
Oh, okay. All right.
So just the opportunity that the character presents, it has more breadth to it, and ambition. But he plays basically a Giamatti character. I mean, he's a schlub. He's like a shorter version of Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's a schlub who likes to drink and smoke cigars, and he marries 3 women. But there's a tenderness to him that I really haven't seen since Sideways.
Okay.
That I think is mined even more in this.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Okay, here's our top 10 list. My top 10, just to recap. Number 10, Let Me In. Number 9, Scott Pilgrim. Number 8, Toy Story 3. 7, Social Network. 6, Another Year. 5, The Fighter. 4, The Town. 3, The Ghost Rider. 2, Black Swan. 1, Barney's Version. Jerry, do you have yours written out? If not, I have yours written out.
No,
okay,
I'll do it. I'll do it. Are we starting backwards?
Yes, number 10.
Okay, Exit to the Gift Shop, The Ghost Rider, Winter's Bone, True Grit, Greenberg, The King's Speech, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, The Fighter, let me see, what was it today? The Social Network, Inception, and Black Swan.
That's right.
Okay. Wow, I did that because I have all these index cards in front of me, so it's like confusing.
Wow, you indexed them. That's great. Okay, Chris, recap your top 10 for us.
Mine is 10, The King's Speech. 9, Inside Job. 8, The Kids Are All Right. 7, Temple Grandin. 6, The Fighter. 5, True Grit. 4, Inception. 3, Black Swan. 2, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And number 1, The Social Network.
All righty. It's been a great year for movies, guys.
Really
and there's tons others that we didn't mention, like tons of other. You guys mentioned a few, but some of the ones that didn't make my list are the same as yours. Ghost Rider. I thought I Love You, Philip Morris was interesting.
Oh, yeah.
That really was, yeah.
Yeah. The Jackass movie was one of the biggest laughs I had in a theater in a long time. Yeah. There's lots of really, really good movies put out this year. It's a very, very good comeback year for movies.
Yeah. There's 2. Besides, I really wanted to put The Town on there, and The Kids Are All Right. That I obviously really was tempted to put that on there, but there are 2 that we haven't really talked. Well, we have talked about. I think I mentioned, but I would put. I was really tempted to put Easy A with Emma Stone, and All Good Things with Kirsten Dunst and Ryan Gosling. I was so. Because I really love those a lot too, but there's just like not enough room, really.
Yeah, I need to see All Good Things. Yeah. Great lists, guys. I appreciate it. Next Sunday night, we're going to be actually back, Chris, if you want to join us. We're going to be back with our 2011 movie forecast.
Oh, cool. Yeah, absolutely.
So you usually join us for that. But we're about to do something very special. We're going to get a list of the top film scores of 2010 from our good buddy, composer Austin Wintory. He has done massive research. I mean, he's combed through like 50 or 60 film scores to compile this list for us. So we're very grateful to him, and here he is.
Wow.
Austin, are you with us?
I am, if you can hear me.
We can hear you great. How are you, man?
I'm doing very well. I actually was kind of running around doing errands and stuff, so I called in and been listening to you guys for about the last hour. and really, really interesting lists. There's a certain amount of intersection with my list, and then a certain, radically not on any of your lists. And so hopefully it's...
that's good. That's what we're looking for.
Very good. I mean,
admittedly, I wasn't as good about seeing a lot of the films this year. I saw kind of the cluster of so-called Oscar movies or the awards movies like Black Swan and King's Speech, and I saw basically all of those. Although the one glaring exception that I have not yet been able to make it out to is The Fighter, which I've not heard anything except the kind of praise you guys have been leveling at it here. Just been so busy, but when you contacted me about this, I said, all right, I'm going to use this as an excuse to at least hear the scores, and so it's like march down to the record store and hundreds and hundreds of dollars later, had this gigantic pile of like 65 albums to start going through, including a lot that I expected to not like at all, but just for the sake of completeness. And there's a few that really shocked me.
Well, it's odd because somebody actually brought up in the chat room when we're talking about film scores, the great film scores of the year can relate to movies that don't work. I mean, it can be a completely different kind of list. Mm-hmm. And you've actually gone out and purchased 50 or 60 CDs just in preparation for this list. So I mean, awesome. God bless you, man. Wow. I appreciate it.
It's been the last couple of weeks have been marked by just constant listening. Because I took it as a challenge. As soon as you reached out, I said, okay, you know what? I usually am not as on top of it, which is a blessing to be as busy as I've been. But nonetheless, I like knowing what my sort of friends and colleagues and the people that I look up to and all that are doing. And so this gave me a real methodical sort of, okay, now I have an excuse. Now I actually have a reason for this enormous tax write-off.
Good for you, man.
So, ultimately you're helping me out financially.
So has it been a good year for film scores, do you think?
I think it has been a good year. My top picks are all really all over the place in terms of the sort of style and why I liked them, and I like that. And there were a few that surprised me that I didn't think I was going to like, and I loved. But I'm just curious, before I say anything, just amongst you guys, what, just off the top of your head, what would be your favorite score? What jumps out at you as? I'm just curious where you guys are coming from. If you had to pick one off the top of your head that just was most memorable for you or most effective.
Most memorable for me is probably Inception. Yeah. For me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, Chris, would you guys say the same?
Yeah, I have to agree. I've been put it in my car finally last month, and I've had it since the summer, and I just can't stop listening to it.
Yeah, it's great music, very operatic. Although I also, to go back to Social Network, I do feel like Trent Reznor's score for that movie was not talked about enough. I thought it worked very, very well in the context of that film.
He just won last night the Critics' Choice Award for it.
Yeah.
And we'll see if he wins tonight.
Which is interesting because a lot of it was very much lifted off of his Ghosts album, which is strange for it to be sort of woven into a score. But listen, I love it, so I thought it was. I'm all for it.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely one of them on my list. So I confess that doing top 10 was literally not possible. Especially considering that a lot of these films I wasn't able to go see, so I'm kind of judging them entirely musically. So there's that big asterisk and caveat with this. So feel free to ignore me completely. Which is,
I think that's the way to go, though. I'm excited that you haven't seen all of these film scores that you're talking about, the films that we're talking about, because you're judging them based on the movie, on the score itself. That's the way to do it, I think.
Well, it's both, and that's kind of how I've arranged this. Is like I've got kind of 5 categories of the all around best, which means they made for albums I enjoyed, and they really, really, really did a lot for the films, which is kind of like the perfect score. That's your scores that are theoretically going to be the most enduring and the most timeless. And then there's sort of the category below that is sort of two different categories that are the opposites of each other. So there's the in context only, as in really helped the film, but on the album I wasn't so into it. And then the opposite, one that in the movie either didn't work or I had no comment on, and it just didn't really jump out at me at all. But as an album, I liked. And there are two scores that I put in that category where I loved the album, but I simply didn't see the film. But I loved the album enough that I felt like it needed to be up high, but I couldn't put it in my top category since I never saw the film. And then there's just kind of scores that I really liked that weren't the best of the year, but I really liked. And then below that are kind of scores that are, for all intents and purposes, average, but nonetheless I really enjoyed and were worth listening to. But they're effectively average, or at least relative to that composer. So.
Okay, so what category do you want to go with first?
We'll I guess we'll go from the bottom up like you guys did. So my essentially average but very reliable, anybody who's thinking of getting these albums will probably be happy they did, although in at least two of these cases there is no album. Okay. But my first one I had was True Grit, which I thought was basically pretty, and I'll leave it at that. And I had to put it down because so many people think it's this brilliant score. I did not. I actually thought it was really distracting in the movie, and it also wasn't my favorite film of the year. I didn't love it as much as everyone else for whatever reason. And usually when that's the case, when I'm kind of the odd one out, I think, okay, I should go see it again just to make sure I didn't have, like bad sushi right beforehand. Because sometimes, your mindset is just wrong. But so anyway, True Grit was a score that I thought was very pretty, but I didn't like that it had no arc. I just felt like it was like time for a scene change. Let's hear a 19th century hymn.
And that's Carter Burwell.
That's Carter Burwell. Does all the Coen Brothers films. Mm-hmm. And his execution, as always, is he's a very solid composer and competent musician, and it was well done and well captured. And anyway, that's one that was like, I enjoyed it while I was listening to it. But that's kind of that's where it stops. The next one in this group, I didn't see the film, but in fact, I don't think a lot of people did, but this was Fair Game, the Valerie Plame film with Naomi Watts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. John Powell.
Yeah, John Powell, and he's, I think, one of the single best composers in the industry today. And this is what I would call a run-of-the-mill John Powell score, which puts it head and shoulders above most other people's scores.
That's true.
And I was really impressed because I thought, with a movie like that, it just didn't seem like it would lend itself very easily to music that's musical and that's interesting. And listening to the album, I was just like consistently throughout saying, "Wow, that was a great cue." Each cue is kind of a little one-off in its own world, which usually I kind of struggle with because as a composer, I personally obsess over kind of creating the large form arc. I think of a score as a 2-hour piece of music that doesn't run for 2 full hours but has breaks in there. But if you have to think of it in the same way that the screenwriter came up with their arc. So when I listen to a score where each cue kind of is all in its own world and there's kind of instrumental choices or there's melodic ideas or whatever that seem entirely proprietary to that cue, it's always, to me, that's like a B score at its height because it's not quite a unified whole. It's almost like a great temp score where things come from all different places. But Fair Game, despite the fact that the unity was thinner than I may have liked, I nonetheless really liked it.
We've played that on the show before. That's
did you really?
That's a score that we premiered on one episode. Yeah, I like that one a lot too.
It was good. The next one was, I guess, in the spirit of your Temple Grandin breach. This is an HBO film, The Special Relationship.
Oh yeah.
Which was an Alexander Desplat score. He continues to have the most insane career, and that score it demonstrated why I love his writing so much. But again, it was like average Desplat, which means I loved it.
And man, what a prolific composer!
Yeah,
I mean, just look at the number of scores he's done this year alone.
Another one that's not on my list. I don't have the album for it, but I remember thinking it was damn effective in the movie. In fact, actually, you know what? I'm going to add that to my list. I just now thought of it for the first time since I never bought the album. I'll add it to my story up here. The next one I had was Toy Story 3, which I think was one of the single best films of the year. I can't make a top 10, but my top 4 films as a filmgoer includes Toy Story 3. I thought that was one of the most brilliant and powerful films I've seen in ages. And I can't ever think of having seen a trilogy where each entry to the trilogy was better than the previous one. And that, to me, Toy Story films are that way. I thought 2 was better than 1 and 3 was better than 2. And that's astounding to me.
Me too. I agree with you.
And the score was mixed brilliantly. I had a wonderful pleasure of going to a screening of that film with the orchestra. So it was like me on the Disney lot with all the orchestral members and Randy Newman watching the film a few weeks before it came out, which is always you can't help but notice the score even more than normal, knowing that there's the oboist 2 rows over there, and there's the horn solo. Oh yeah, there he is. I hear him now. And it's kind of like it gives you this strange heightened awareness that is probably not the most fair way to watch it. But I thought he did a good job as always. Randy Newman is, I think, just immensely talented, and it didn't necessarily stand out as the greatest thing ever. And strangely, I don't think there's an album out, and they did not submit his score for Best Original Score for some reason.
That's insane.
Which is, I don't really get that, but
especially since he's been nominated so often, it seems like a given.
Yeah.
He the fact that he didn't win for Best Song for Toy Story is like such a bizarre. I mean, it's just so perfect. And then to win for Monsters, Inc. I mean, I'll never forget his Oscar speech. Do you remember it? It was so incredulous.
Yeah,
really?
I do remember that, yeah.
It was almost rude, but it was hilarious, I thought. I mean, it wouldn't be him otherwise, I guess. Has to be a little bit edgy. But in any case, my next, there's 2 that I have here that I didn't really the Dalia Marianelli Eat, Pray, Love I wasn't able to hear all of, but from what I heard, I said this is beautiful, as I would expect from him. I had to seek that out. It's the best performing film that he's yet scored, and yet the album is only available through Home Shopping Network's website.
Really?
Which is just so strange.
Who did the score to that?
Dalia Marianelli, who won the Oscar for Atonement.
Oh yeah, well, the Atonement score is wonderful.
He's great. He's a very talented composer, and
Do you actually went on Home Shopping Network to buy this?
No, that's the thing. I wasn't able to get it in time, so I just had to kind of scrounge around on the internet, and I was able to pick up scraps of it, and I could tell. So that again, there's an asterisk with it. I could tell it was good.
Right.
It may even be higher up on my list if I guess it was a movie I didn't see either. But he's reliable. He's the kind of guy that I don't think would ever be below this category. He doesn't write bad scores.
Right.
And another one that surprised me that's in this category was Aaron Zigman's score to For Colored Girls, which
the Tyler Perry movie.
Right.
Yeah, this is I didn't see it. I heard it was brutally depressing. Which is not why I didn't see it. It just, again, as with a lot of the rest, it was a little busy. But he really wrote something lovely, and it features Joshua Bell. There's a few cues of it's just piano and violin duet of Aaron playing and Joshua Bell on violin, and it's really nice. I have no idea if the album's been released. I have the promo that he floated out for the awards, and I wouldn't have had a chance to hear it otherwise, but I could see why he would be pushing it, because it's really, for a guy that's, career is kind of based on these sort of Tyler Perry comedies and movies like Sex and the City, He occasionally will do a more serious film. Like I remember he had some nice cues in that Flash of Genius, the Greg Kinnear movie.
Yeah.
But this is better than that. I mean, that movie was kind of like a light drama that was trying to be a more serious film. I thought it wasn't the best film I thought, but this score at least, you can hear that he really cares, and that to me means a lot because I feel like, you know, we have the deck stacked against us as composers so often with just crazy time frames, and budgets are never quite. They're always, for percentage-wise, exactly the most frustrating amount short of what would be really helpful, and you could tell that he really would stop at nothing to write a great score, and so you know, that one was on there. And then similarly, one that surprised me was Chris Beck's score to Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which was a film, again, I did not see. It had zero appeal to me, but he's a composer that occasionally really does some nice work, and I just thought he did a great job of a score that didn't sound like Harry Potter, but clearly needed to be kind of like Harry Potter.
Right.
But it really didn't sound like some poor secondhand version of that, which is, you know, an accomplishment. And then the last, also Harry Gregson Williams' Prince of Persia. I know that movie didn't perform anywhere near that they were hoping it would, but there were some nice cues. I'll give him that. It was, you know, it was kind of in the vein of Goldsmith's Mummy or that kind of thing, but it was well done. You know, a lot of his Tony Scott type stuff is you know, what I think of his music as being, and this one is a little more traditionally orchestral. And I liked it.
So those are all your
these are essentially average is what I put.
Yeah.
The other one that I have in there is one that I feel very, very fortunate to have heard because it was kind of one of the great lost scores. But John Corigliano's rejected score to Edge of Darkness.
Yes.
Which I thought he did. You know, he did. I could see why they tossed it, but he's one of the single greatest living composers. And certainly not known for films, obviously. This was only his fourth score in 30 years. But damn good writing. But in any case, moving right along, the next category of really good, really well worth listening were Bruno Coulet's score to the documentary Babies, which is just so fun and so musical. And that's going to be a recurring theme here because documentaries are so hard to write good music for because it's like, you know, an hour and a half or whatever of non-stop dialogue.
Yeah.
And so how you fit in anything.
It's hard not to be intrusive.
It's damn difficult. Every doc I've scored, it's a struggle, and it's usually one you don't end up feeling like you kind of can claim victory over. And Babies was one that the cues are real short, and so it's a real compact album. But it's like Coraline was such a great score. It's such a travesty that wasn't nominated last year at the Oscars, and he continued with a much smaller but really great score in Babies. And then another documentary that goes right along with it is Nathan Barr's Hood to Coast, which as per his style is just millions of layers of him playing instruments. He's an incredibly talented multi-instrumentalist. Like if you listen to True Blood, it's all him alone. And this score was just so infectiously fun. It's almost like a 60s rock album. But it's great. It's great. And
so those two documentaries are what list are these on?
These are in my kind of B+, really, really just terrific scores, but they're not the very, very cream of the crop.
Okay.
And Harry Potter 7 is in that category.
Another Desplat?
Yeah, he's like half this list. He has literally a score in every category. And I thought it was great. I loved he doesn't. I figured he wouldn't, but he really doesn't hinge on the Williams themes or any previous themes at all.
Yeah, that's what I gathered from that when watching it. It didn't sound like any of the original scores at all.
No, which I think, he when you do that, the risk is you're going to be the second-rate John Williams, and and that's really easy to do because John Williams is John Williams.
Right.
And so he.
And plus, these movies at this point have a different kind of personality. I mean, it's coming to a closure, so
I think
it separates emotionally from the others.
Well, yeah, as with the actual actors in real life and their characters, everyone's kind of grown up.
Yeah.
And the score, Desplat is an enormously. He's a deceptively simple composer in that I think he's a very sophisticated composer, but his music always is incredibly transparent and simple. And this was no exception. And in the similar vein, sort of, was Danny Elfman's Alice in Wonderland, which was the most just raw fun I'd had from a score of his in a long time.
I like that score. I really do.
It was great. Really, Amin, who you of course know, felt it was the sort of the culmination of everything he'd ever done till now. It was kind of like all of his scores, all the lessons learned from his whole career to this point, summed up in Alice in Wonderland.
I really like that main title theme.
It's really special.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then the last one I'll say for this category, well, I also have The Tourist, James Newton Howard, which, he's also just so prolific that, and I haven't been as in love with his scores the last few years as I was, like in the 90s, for example. But The Tourist was great. I thought it was inventive, and it was cohesive and really well. Like it has a measure of fun in it that I feel like I don't hear from him, which I feel is maybe a little bit of John Powell influence sneaking in, because Powell's music is obviously really fun and really infectious and just enjoyable, and this had a lot of that. But it didn't feel like he was stealing from John Powell. He felt, as he always does, very much himself. But the one that really surprised me in this list that I remember seeing in the theaters almost a year ago and thinking the movie was all right, but the score I had went into prepared to look down on and was really impressed with was Book of Eli.
Me too. That's Atticus Ross.
It is, yeah. He and Trent Reznor are quickly taking over the world.
Well, yeah, Trent Reznor is doing Girl with a Dragon Tattoo.
They're doing it together as they did Social Network, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they did Social Network together, yeah.
And
that's cool.
They are, what I love is it's really sort of ultra-electronic music that feels very human and organic, which to me is exactly that's the best you can hope to achieve with purely electronic music, is something that doesn't just feel like someone hit the space bar in Pro Tools and walked away, but it actually still feels like music, and they did that enormously well.
We had him on the show for Book of Eli, and it is one of those incredibly inventive scores that sticks in your mind. That's a good one.
It was effective across the board. So my next category up were scores that I really loved the albums of, and either did not care for it in the film or didn't see the film but loved it so much that it was one of my top scores. The first of which is a film you all talked about that I couldn't possibly disagree with you more on, which was The Ghost Rider. That movie made me want to shoot myself. In fact, I did, but I'm a horrible shot. And the score, though, is amazing. I mean, it added so much to that. I wouldn't have made it through it, I think, if it weren't for the score. But the thing was, it actually kind of highlighted the things I didn't like about the film, but I loved it on its own terms so much that it carried me through anyway, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. You're not the first person that I've talked to who hates the movie. I know a lot of people that don't like it. I'm always curious.
And I think that's kind of the key, that it was an interesting film, right? I mean, I have so many friends that think Black Swan is the most overrated pile of garbage.
I know.
And I thought it was,
and
to me, the fact that there's not a lot of people who kind of are reacting apathetically is sort of the big, massive red flag that it's good, or at least interesting.
That's a love it or hate it movie, Black Swan.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally, Black Swan is, I think, I'm with you guys. I thought it was one of the single best films of the year. But not to get ahead of myself, so Ghost Rider, and then neither of these next two did I see the film. One I expected to love, and I did, and the other I expected to hate passionately and really liked a lot. First is Goldenthal's The Tempest, which even though the movie was absolutely slammed by critics, I nonetheless wanted to see it, and it vanished from theaters so fast that I literally wasn't able to, which is a shame because Julie Taymor is so incredibly talented. I don't know what happened there, but the score was everything I was hoping it would be and more. I mean, Goldenthal is, I think, one of the single best guys out there, and that score was just terrific. I thought it absolutely...
Well, I heard that the guy that was delivering The Tempest to theaters, the delivery guy, actually fell and broke his ribs. So I think that postponed the showing.
He was dragged into an alley somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
It played 5 days at the theater here. It didn't even last a full week. It just disappeared.
No, it was crazy. I mean, it was.
Everything Taymor does is plagued by accidents and injuries and delays. That poor
no
thing.
Kidding.
Such a visionary she is, but
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think she comes from a background of like set design or something like theater, art direction kind of world, and so if nothing else, you can count on her films to be immense amounts of eye candy. But of course, being married to Elliot Goldenthal, there's huge ear candy. I mean, Frida was just so perfect.
Frida, the score to Frida, I think, is my favorite by him.
She married Goldenthal. That's a good score.
Yeah.
So what's your other pick?
The other one was the Mark Streitenfeld Robin Hood, which I thought would be very run-of-the-mill, generic remote control sort of Hans Zimmer hand-me-down, and I didn't think it was that at all. I thought it was very musical and organic, and he balanced the certain requisite amount of big power themes and whatnot, which were memorable in their own right. But there's a lot of much more intimate sort of chambery period instrument stuff and interesting melodies, and I found myself just overwhelmed with delight at how much I liked that score, because I don't like, when there's sort of missed opportunities, on a film like that that's going to potentially give you a really great chance to do something, special, and especially given some of the scores that have been written for Ridley Scott's films over the years. I was really surprised that it was that it was as good as it was, and I was absolutely thrilled to think so. And again, I didn't see the movie, but
so your next category is actually the cream of the crop, right?
Well, there's the flip of this category was, in the movie I thought it worked great, but on an album didn't love it, which was Tron, another one that I couldn't go 4 inches without having someone get in my face and tell me how that was the second coming of music itself. And it was one of the things in the film I thought, this is doing a lot for the movie, which I didn't in general really care for all that much. But it really elevated the film a lot. But as an album, it wasn't my favorite. Not bad, but just not my top pick. And the other one was the one I thought of earlier that I'd forgotten about, which was another Desplat score, which was The Prophet, the French film by Jacques Audiard, which I thought was an amazing movie.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, probably one of the year's best. And his score is so transparent that you forget that you are hearing it. And Desplat is one of the few who can write a score like that and then do a Harry Potter or a Ghost Rider where it's a real front and center score, and tastefully so. But but he can also do something that's obviously invisible totally. And so my greatest of the greatest, though, films that were just great films, great scores, great albums. One that shocked me was 127 Hours. I've never gotten over the disappointment that Desplat lost Benjamin Button to Slumdog Millionaire, and that sort of made me bitter towards Rahman, A.R. Rahman, because I thought, he's a really competent songwriter. I loved the song. I felt that was a very justified Oscar win. But the score, I was like, it's not a score. It's great. How could that possibly beat Benjamin Button? And so I went into this movie like, what the hell? And then I remember reading a review before I saw it that said a great treadmill-ready score from A.R. Rahman. I was like, oh, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, what?
Like, and I thought, is this movie going to be like more sort of jamming tunes like Slumdog? And so I went into it, I think, with immensely low expectations, which is that's great when that happens, because then I'm watching the movie and I'm like, this is carrying this film. And the scenes where he's cutting his arm and he's this kind of nasty, sort of raspy electric guitar stuff, I was so impressed with it. I thought, that was such a smart choice. Never saw that coming. Would never have guessed this is the composer of Slumdog Millionaire.
That's just true.
Just a great score. Great. I really enjoyed the film a lot. And so another one that surprised me was the Chris Beck, again, score for Waiting for Superman.
Another documentary.
Yeah, the documentary.
I don't remember the score that well. I like the movie.
We played the score on the show, actually.
Yeah, I know. I still don't. My memory's horrible in that regard.
Well, we should all reintroduce ourselves to you at the end of the show, but I'm on the board of a nonprofit that deals with education. I mean, we talked about that when Leonard was on the show. He's with me in that group as well, Education Through Music. So I'm obviously way predisposed towards the subject material of that film,
right.
And I thought the film was just amazing. But I was really shocked. Sorry, what?
Very moving film. I mean, very emotional film.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he made such smart choices, because documentaries, it's really easy to be, since like his own in Inconvenient Truth, or any Michael Moore movie, it's whether you agree or not, it's so sensationalist in its effort to try to get you to agree or react emotionally to sort of non-fiction, as it were, that that I end up usually not liking most of those films. But this was one that, again, I admit I was biased because I went into it prepared to love it.
That's all right. That's okay.
But I thought the movie was absolutely terrific, and the score was very musical and it contributed to a sense of humor in the film that was really key to it not making you want to gouge your eyes out in frustration the way a lot of these kinds of movies can be.
Did you read the New York Times, A.O. Scott's top 10 films of the year?
No. Did he have this on there?
He had it as the worst film of the year.
Really?
Yes.
That's
I was like, what?
Why would that be how?
I don't get that at all.
He's not predisposed to worrying about education in the country,
but I mean,
apparently.
It's like Inside Job. It's very very important, and they're both films I actually think are very related. Actually, are definitely linked in one way or another. But that was he picked as his worst. Didn't he see some other things? Wait, he didn't see Skyline?
Tooth Fairy wasn't even on his worst list.
He didn't see Skyline? He didn't see any Nicolas Cage movie? I
don't know.
That's pretty shocking.
Yeah. We got 5 minutes.
All right, no, I got only a couple left, so thanks for bearing with me here. Waiting for Superman, I just thought he did an amazing job at making really good music that helped a lot, and somehow managed to effortlessly swim beneath all these talking heads. Black Swan, of course, that's I think that he probably could have pushed Clint Mansell. Yep, Clint Mansell, Aronofsky's regular collaborator. For a guy who's primarily known for these kind of more beat-driven, hip, electronic, sort of loopy type scores, this was a very refreshing kind of change of pace, and boy, did it ever do something for that film. I mean, the theatricality of that film was the film, and so much of that is the score, which is, of course, the original Tchaikovsky Swan Lake, but he definitely twists it and plays with it in ways that are, not any composer could have done, not just anybody could have gone in there and did what he did, which is, and I just thought it was so elegant, and I just loved that movie to death. It was the best movie I think I ever saw about the artistic process. Again,
right.
I'm with you guys. I loved it. I have so many filmmaker friends that really were put off by it a lot, which is strange to me, but I guess that's what you're supposed to say when you're a director. But Social Network, you guys have covered that. And then my two favorites, my single favorite film of the year, King's Speech, and the score, again, deceptively simple, just stunning. Desplat is just amazing. I hope he wins the Oscar for this. He's certainly written quite a few Oscar-worthy scores, but this one, I went to a screening where the director gave a Q&A, and he said the reason why he chose Desplat and the reason why he thinks he's a master is that he doesn't editorialize actor performance through his music. And this is the perfect movie to show that, because you can't afford that on a movie like this with those kinds of performances where there's so much nuance and they're so emotionally complex. And
I fully expect his Tree of Life score to be jaw-dropping as well.
Yeah,
there's the sky.
Can you imagine
no limits for this guy?
Matching Malik's imagery with Desplat's scoring.
Dude, I can't wait.
I think all the most interesting directors definitely see in him, a chance to really make something special. But anyway, my final one was How to Train Your Dragon, which is another one of the best films of the year, I thought. And John Powell, who, like I've said 1,000 times, is one of the single most tremendously effective and intelligent and inventive and all good things that you could say composers. I thought he outdid himself on this one. And it's just so raw and enjoyable. I mean, he said himself the reason why he does all these DreamWorks films, or animated films I should say, in addition to, the big action films and things, was that these let you express joy through music in a way that no other medium lets you. And he knows how to do that better than just about anybody. I mean, he can make something that's just pure joy, where you're just absolutely happy that you are alive to be able to listen to that music. Mm-hmm. And not a lot of film genres even call for that, and even fewer composers can do it without, I think, it being horribly cheesy. So King's Speech and How to Train Your Dragon are my two favorite scores, and they're about as opposite as you can get.
So we've got a lot of great choices here, thanks to your hard work and research and expertise.
Yeah, I apologize for the overkill, but
no,
it's due, I
say. A lot of choices out there for our listeners. Pick these scores up. A lot of them, all of them that Austin talked about are very worthy of listen. Austin, thank you, buddy. You're remarkable.
Well, and I apologize for Inception not being in any of those categories, but I'm sorry. I can't drink the Kool-Aid on that one.
It's like foghorn.
The joke with that score that I've been throwing around was The Dark Knight and Batman Begins are two notes, bah, bah. And so for his next genius innovation, he goes, Inception is now one note with that brum. And so the next score is going to be his John Cage complete silence as he goes from one note to zero. And that'll be. I'm very excited.
That will be. Yeah. Well,
no,
thank you, man.
It's a very, very effective score. I actually thought about putting it with Tron in the really did a lot for the movie, but I didn't really love the album category. Right. And rightfully, I guess it should be there. But there's just so many other good scores this year.
Well, we're going to close the show with your top score of the year, John Powell's How to Train Your Dragon. And we appreciate everyone out there listening and listening to us tonight live and on replay. Enjoy the Golden Globes tonight. We'll be back Tuesday night with editors Craig McKay and Bobby Osteen. Craig McKay is Jonathan Demme's longtime editor, Silence of the Lambs, Philadelphia. He was nominated for an Oscar for Reds, editing that with Dede Allen, and he'll be talking about the art of editing with us, and we'll recap the Globes, Jerry. That's what we'll do Tuesday night, just to play in.
Tuesday. We're on this Tuesday instead of Wednesday?
Tuesday night. I have a screening on Wednesday, so I can't.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. All right, Tuesday at 10? Oh, it's going to be a busy week for me. Okay.
Austin, thank you, buddy.